All right, welcome everybody to the Lakers Legacy Podcast, where to re-sign or not to re-sign? That is the question. Or maybe it's more like to trade or to trade even harder when it comes to Mr. Rui Hachimura. But we'll get into it. I'm your host, Jonathan Hernandez. Konbanwa wa. Yoroshiku onegai shimasu. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about the Black Samurai, Mr. Rui Hachimura. So I know the Lakers schedule just dropped and everything. And let me get this out of the way. I don't know what this goes. Let me start that over. So I know the Lakers schedule dropped today, but honestly, I haven't had too much time to digest it. And we end up just recycling much of the same talk with schedule updates anyways. So I will shelve the schedule analysis for a later time or a later show. All I know for now is that the Lakers road trips happen in 3 chunks. And we have like a 6-game road trip, an 8-game road trip, and another 6-game road trip. That's all I know for now. Haven't dug into it because today we are going to do a performance review for the Black Samurai and ask the question, what the hell do we do with Rui Hachimura? But before we get started, please remember to do all the things. Please like this video, comment down below. Please subscribe to the channel. I'm about 20 subscribers away from 4K, so thank you guys very much. Let's get me to 4K even before we hit 820. Also, you can become a member on the channel as well, where you'll be able to view exclusive videos and take a deeper look into this maniacal mind of mine. Patreon.com/The Lakers Legacy Podcast. Buy me a copy. All the things. If you can help out in any small way, it would be greatly appreciated. The ROI on this Lakers Legacy stuff is terrible, and I'm spending more on Creative Suite subscriptions than gaining any money back. So again, anything you can do to help out helps out a lot, even if it's a simple subscribe to the channel. All right, with that said, let's get into the show. And yeah, for today's episode, like I said, I first want to do a quick review and sum up of Rui Hachimura's time with the Lakers. I want to talk about the strides he's made, the holes he still has left in his game that leave us wanting more. And then we'll get into the future talk with Rui Hachimura with regards to potential contract extensions, with regards to flipping him at the deadline, what to do if there's no trade for Rui Hachimura at the deadline. What do the Lakers do during the summer of 2026? Will they let Rui Hachimura just walk for nothing? We'll get into all of that future talk. But first, I want to start out by talking about Rui Hachimura's time with the Lakers. I want to talk about Rui Hachimura as a person. And so let me just bring up this player profile sheet really quick. Let me pick a better view. All right. So Rui Hachimura, let me quickly, before I get into any anecdotal stuff about my thoughts with regards to Rui Hachimura, let's just go through his player specs really quickly. Rui Hachimura is currently on an expiring $18.2 million contract. You know his position, small forward, power forward, and sometimes JJ Redick and other coaches like to play him at small ball 5 for some reason, to his detriment and downside. Rui Hachimura is 27 years old, still 27 years old, right smack dab in his prime. He is 6'8" with a 7'2" wingspan, which I actually forget that he has that long of a wingspan. And he weighs 230 pounds. Last season with the Lakers, he averaged 13 points per game, 5 rebounds, a career high volume-wise, a career high 1.7 threes made per game on 41% three-point shooting, which is his second best three-point shooting percentage of his career. But when you take into account the volume, Rui had his best three-point shooting season in his NBA career, and that was his first season shooting more than 100 threes. I believe he actually had like an exact 100 threes made by the end of the season. So good on Rui for continuing to improve in the three-point shooting department. So let's get into my thoughts on Rui Hachimura first. I really like Rui. He is my half Asian brother from another mother. And I'm mostly proud of how much Rui has grown as a basketball player and also a person, which I'll get to in a second. I think with Rui, fans view him, in my opinion, too harshly, and they often view him under a deficit model based off of all the things that he can't do versus everything that he has improved upon thus far and everything that he has done for a team that has needed him to do maybe more than we expected when we just gave up Kendrick Nunn in 3 seconds for him. And so in trying to view Rui Hachimura in more of a fair light, does Rui do any one thing exceptionally well? No, he doesn't. And I think that's the biggest problem fans have with regards to his game. Having said that, does Rui do a lot of things very solidly at a very nice size of 6'8" with a 7'2" wingspan? He absolutely does, and he does it without complaining, all while having continued to grow each year that he's been in the NBA and each year that he's been a Los Angeles Laker. Rui Hachimura is a dude who, with the Washington Wizards, former number 8th pick of the 2019 NBA draft, I believe it was 8th pick, around there with Cam Reddish and Jackson Hayes right after another. So this is a dude who, with the Washington Wizards, a top 10 lotto pick, when he came out of Gonzaga, he was purely a bucket who needed the ball. But with the Lakers, he has somehow transformed himself into a valuable tertiary role player on winning basketball teams who now excels as an off-ball player, not only as a finisher and cutter, but most importantly, as a three-point spacer. And then even defensively, Rui has grown so much when it comes to bringing more consistent effort, bringing more consistent motor, mostly bringing that physicality every night, learning how to shade guards and wings on the perimeter over to the right spots, learning how to bang down low with guys like Nikola Jokic, Karl Towns, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Yes, we wish that Rui Hachimura could just be a better rebounder for sure. I think his first year with the Wizards was his best rebounding season. He had like 6 rebounds. If he can even just get back to that level of rebounding production, that would be great. But, with Rui, you kind of got to compartmentalize with him with regards to the things that he's improving on. Because Rui, even though he's solid in a lot of things, you kind of need to boil it down and focus what he needs to do on pretty much a singular level. And so to ask Rui to try and stop Jokic or to ask Rui to try and stop Giannis and then to ask him on top of that to grab the board, that's just not in the cards right now. And so I don't think Rui Hachimura will ever be a tremendous rebounder. But having said that, he has still grown defensively, especially when you think about the ways that the Lakers have had to ask Rui, especially when you think about the ways that Rui has, or the gaps that Rui has had to fill defensively for this Lakers team that has, in many different parts of the last 3 years, they've been missing like a 3-and-D wing defender. So then Rui had to fill that role. They've been missing a legitimate backup 5 that they could trust. So Rui had to fill that role. They were missing a starting small forward in Jared Vanderbilt's absence. So Rui had to fill that role. In every sense, Rui has kind of been tugged and pulled, and the Lakers have had to sort of morph and mold him into exactly what they needed. Now, did Rui do it to an A+ level? No, but he did it adequately enough to the point where every season that Rui has been a Laker, the Lakers have been a competitive team. The Lakers have been in the playoffs every year. So you have to give him credit for that. And so, in my opinion, Rui has done everything the Lakers have asked of him to do. And just because he's not consistently looking like an all-star, I feel like fans have tended to use him as an easy scapegoat. Also, those are my thoughts about Rui on the basketball court. Now I want to contextualize what he's done, or now I want to contextualize Rui as a person, because I think fans tend to forget that Rui, number one, he comes from Japan, Toyama, Japan, and he came over to the States brand new, wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, not only with regards to basketball, but just becoming an American, playing in the States, playing overseas. And Rui Hachimura started off playing basketball very late in his life. He was initially a baseball player. He picked up basketball pretty much when he was already like entering high school, so he had to learn the game very quickly. And so if Rui Hachimura seems slow to you on the basketball court, it's because he kind of is, and it's because he's still learning the game. And so I just want to make sure that fans continue to contextualize that aspect about Rui Hachimura, because yeah, the dude has shown really great strides with regards to him coming over from overseas, him learning the game of basketball and picking it up pretty quickly. And, it may not be the type of progress that fans want to see from Rui every single year, but he's improved undoubtedly every single year. And also, the other thing I want to point out about Rui is that I don't think fans realize that this dude was about to quit basketball at one point. This dude had mental issues that one year with the Washington Wizards and had to take a lengthy leave of absence. I don't know. He's never spoken about what those issues were. If I had to guess, I would be he wanted to go back home in Japan. He was feeling homesick. He wasn't sure what his place was here in the States as a basketball player. If I had to guess, I think that might have been it, but there could have been a bunch of different things going on with Rui Hachimura. So if you take into account that this dude might have almost ended his own basketball career, and he's bounced back in a huge way, been able to find joy with the Los Angeles Lakers. I mean, I love that type of human element to the story of his own progression and his arc, because it's not just his improvement on the basketball court, it's his improvement as a human being and as a person. And that's the type of player that I as a fan gravitate towards. It's also why he was advised to get a dog, because for his mental health. That's why currently you'll see Rui Hachimura pretty much always around his poodle mix, Jake Kuhn. So if you're wondering why Rui Hachimura loves his dog so much, it's because that dog kind of got him out of a dark place. And for any of you who are also dog owners, you can relate to Rui Hachimura very closely in that respect. So that's all the personal context and anecdotal fan context that I want to give about Rui Hachimura. Let's dive into the stats to kind of really solidify the strides Rui has made even as a Los Angeles Laker, shall we? So I have some slides to show you guys. Why don't we start here? So I went over his stats last season with the Lakers: 13 points, 5 rebounds, 1.7 threes made per game, highest volume 3-point shooting year of his career, 41% from three. Let's talk about what Rui Hachimura has done as a Laker without LeBron James, because I think this is an important split stat to analyze and assess when thinking about Rui Hachimura's future with the team. So let me pull this up. Oh man, that is much smaller than I thought. Okay, here we go. So last season, here are Rui's stats without LeBron James. Now, this is a very small sample size. I have a bigger sample size of what this looks like. But last season, when LeBron James was out, in 4 games, Rui Hachimura, pretty much taking over for LeBron James, averaged 19.3 points on 56% from the field, 2 steals, 0.8 blocks, 6.3 rebounds. So there's your better rebounding Rui. And he shot a ridiculous 60% from 3, knocking down 2.3 threes a game. Again, very small sample size, but 19.6 rebounds, 2 steals, almost a block on 56% from the field, 60% from 3 on high volume of threes. Those are near all-star numbers, you know? So I feel like fans forget in the hustle and bustle of the season what Rui has done whenever key players of the roster have been missing for injury-related reasons, whether it's like Anthony Davis is out, but most importantly, when LeBron James is out, Rui Hachimura has stepped the hell up and put up numbers you'd expect from a fringe all-star. But people forget that, you know, because most of the time LeBron James and Anthony Davis and now Luka Doncic are the ones taking up his usage. So that's what Rui Hachimura did last season without LeBron. Let's look at what he's done without LeBron throughout the tenure of his Lakers career. All right, so this is Rui Hachimura. Bigger sample size now. Now it's still 18 games, but a much bigger sample size. 18 games through 2.5 years as a Laker. Without LeBron James, when Rui Hachimura has been the LeBron replacement as a starter, Rui Hachimura has averaged 16.3 points, 5.5 rebounds, 1.1 assists, 0.8 steals, 0.6 blocks on 53% from the field, and a still very ridiculous 48% from three, knocking down 1.7 threes a game. That is a valuable player. And the fact that he consistently produces when LeBron James is out is something that I don't hear fans saying enough. Rui Hachimura is inconsistent. He's inconsistent in this way, in that way, in that way. Well, he's very consistent when one of your top forwards is missing, because then he's able to have a little bit more free reign with the ball. He's able to get more minutes. He's not yanked immediately because of a mistake. So again, I think it's very important to just keep these things in mind and keep these things in perspective. So there's Rui Hachimura in his career as a Laker without LeBron James. 16 points, 5.5 rebounds, 53% from the field, 47.6% from three, knocking down 1.7 threes a game. It's kind of ridiculous. Here's another crazy stat from Rui Hachimura. Did you know that Rui Hachimura in NBA/ABA history has the second highest three-point shooting percentage in the playoffs of any other NBA player ever, at 48% from three? That's insane. Now, Myers Leonard being here at number 3 probably makes this list look ridiculous. But to be fair, Myers Leonard has only played like 5 playoff games. So that 3-point percentage, you can't even count it. Whereas Rui Hachimura has played about 30 plus playoff games. And the fact that he is shooting 48% from 3 on a pretty high volume, especially the last 3 years, because Rui Hachimura's 3-point volume in the playoffs, at least with the Lakers, has actually risen from his regular season. The fact that Rui Hachimura continues to improve upon his playoff 3-point percentage is pretty nuts. And again, I don't think he gets enough credit for this aspect of his game. Now, and actually, I will show you his playoff 3-point percentage. I am missing a slide, guys. 1 second. I do have a slide showing his playoff numbers. So let me pull that up really quick before I continue. All right. So let's look at Rui Hachimura's career playoff stats. So it's going to look somewhat diluted. I mean, they're not flashy stats because Rui Hachimura, again, has always been a tertiary role player. At best, he's been maybe the 4th or 5th guy. But in his career, Rui Hachimura has playoff averages of 12.3 points, 4.4 rebounds on 53% from the field, and again, 48.5% from 3, knocking down 1.5 threes a game. And so even in this tertiary role, he has done everything that you could ask for from a role player in the playoffs. So while, there have been some series where Rui's effectiveness has sort of dropped off a little bit, on the whole, Rui has been a player that you can actually trust in the playoffs and actually deploy, even if you only have to deploy him for 20 minutes. You know at the very least that he's going to knock down a wide open corner 3. And actually his last 2 playoff games against the Denver Nuggets this past season, he had like back-to-back 23-point games, and obviously Minnesota Timberwolves, he had back-to-back 23-point games. And in that last closeout game versus Minnesota, he looked like the only one who wanted to play basketball for the Lakers. So again, Rui Hachimura, solid playoff performer who doesn't drop. And I don't think fans give him enough credit for that stat. So those are the things that I kind of just wanted to lay out about Rui Hachimura in general. We are going to get to the trade side of things and the way that Rui Hachimura is kind of in limbo in a lot of ways. And we will get to that in just a second. But first, I want to talk to you guys about a new book by author Carl Barney regarding something we all strive for: happiness. And happiness was something that Rui Hachimura didn't have his second year or third year with the Washington Wizards because he had to take that leave of absence for his mental health. But now, as a Los Angeles Laker, Rui Hachimura is very happy with Jake Kuhn, his poodle, in his life. Anyways, back to this book by Carl Barney about happiness. You guys weren't born to coast through life. You were born to feel alive, to wake up with energy, to live a life that excites you. And the new book, The Happiness Experiment, is the tool to help you do just that. It's not fluff. It's a practical system to help you find your unique version of joy, meaning, and drive. It's time to stop surviving, time to start thriving. And if you want to learn more, take a few minutes at the end of this podcast and listen to an interview about the happiness experiment and how you can bring it to life. Discover your unique happiness type by taking the free assessment at myhappinesstype.com. That's myhappinesstype.com. Then grab your copy of The Happiness Experiment at booksamillion.com. That's booksamillion.com. Thanks to Profluence for today's promo read. Let's pitch it to a couple more sponsors, and when we return, let's talk about what the Lakers might do with Rui Hachimura contractually, because there's an option here that not enough fans have been talking about, and it's a nuclear option, depending on how you feel about Rui Hachimura. So we'll get into that after a couple more sponsors, and I will catch you guys after the turn. So fittingly, I am currently drinking a matcha latte. So, you know, because Rui's Japanese. Okay. All right. So we are back. Now, what do we do with Rui Hachimura? And I specifically want to bring up this question because for the most part, we have talked about Rui under the lens of him being a trade asset. And it makes sense, right? He's an expiring $18.2 million. We need that salary ballast to get a player who fits a little bit better than Rui, because as I mentioned at the top, as much as Rui has been able to morph himself into this sort of versatile player who can sort of fill the Lakers' gaps in a adequate way, his ability to do that while not being exceptionally good at any one thing and not being a tried and true 3-and-D small forward has actually hampered, I feel like, his overall value to the team moving forward. And we've always been in search for, honestly, the wingier version of Rui. And that has stayed with Rui throughout his tenure as a Laker. So now that he's an expiring $18.2 million contract, it makes sense that we have been talking about him as a trade asset. But now I want to raise the question, could Rui actually be more than that? And could he actually be a part of the Lakers' Luka future, be part of the Lakers' next phase? Especially if you consider that LeBron James might be out the door soon. And at the top of the show, you already saw me run through all of the non-LeBron numbers for Rui Hachimura, and they look very good. And so I'm going to pair that question with another question, because I don't feel like enough people have been talking about this as well. I think Dan Weike actually addressed this in a recent article of his. But here's my next question. If Rui can actually be a part of the Lakers' Luka future, or if we can squint and envision that, then should the Lakers actually give him an extension? And if so, where do we draw the line on annual average value amount of that contract? And where do we draw the line with regards to years? So I bring up this question because I've been thinking about, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've been putting Rui in every pretty much trade situation as well to get back like I don't know, even a DeAndre Hunter type or insert X wing that would fit better than Rui. Yes, even including Andrew Wiggins without giving up the 2031st first. I too have been putting Rui Hachimura in the trade machine. But having said that, I've been thinking more about how valuable Rui is to the rest of the league as an expiring contract. Because if you think about it, I'm sure Rui has fans around the league. He's still 27 years old. He's right smack dab in his prime. I'm sure Rui has fans, but he's also an expiring $18.2 million. And so for me, I've started to wonder whether he's actually more valuable on a longer term deal for these other teams. Because think about it. Let's say you're the Toronto Raptors, you love wings, you're an international uh, basketball team that's not even in the United States, you want Rui Hachimura. Or let's say you're like, actually, though, let's stick with the Toronto Raptors. Let's say you want Rui Hachimura. If you trade for Rui Hachimura, you're essentially just trading for the right to re-sign Rui Hachimura to his next $20+ million deal. And I don't know how attractive that is to other teams. And if you're trading for Rui Hachimura just as an expiring, I also think Rui Hachimura has much more value beyond just being an expiring salary ballast in the likes of Gabe Vincent, Maxi Kleber. I would even argue even more value than D'Angelo Russell, right? Who was already kind of 28 years old. The book was out on small, unathletic, and explosive guards like D'Angelo Russell. Like Rui Hachimura still has a lot of, value. And so beyond just being an expiring contract. And so with that in mind, that's why I've sort of been toying around with the idea of whether or not Rui might actually be more valuable on a new deal. Now, it would still be a short-term deal, but what if the Lakers re-sign Rui to a new 2-year extension worth around, what do you guys think? What would you give Rui Hachimura? I think it would be a steal for the Lakers if they could retain Rui Hachimura on his current $18 million deal. I think those talks have already happened, but that's probably why an extension hasn't been signed off on, because I don't think Rui and his camp want to take on that same sort of deal. And I know $18 million sounds like a lot, but actually with the CBA continuing to rise year after year, $18 million is not that much at all. Actually, it's just by next year, $18 million is only going to be $3 million above the full mid-level exception at about $15 million. So in my opinion, if the Lakers could re-sign Rui to another $18 million contract for 2 years, let's say 2 years, $36 to $38 million, they should absolutely do that. However, again, I think Rui and his camp want more. So then let's think about this. How much more do they want? How much more would we be willing to give him to the point where it doesn't hurt our cap books? And I think I'd be okay with re-signing Rui to, let's say, $20 to $22 million, as long as it's only for 2 more years, and I'll tell you why I'm okay with doing that. Because again, I'll reiterate myself. I do think that Rui Hachimura, for a specific number of teams, I think the Toronto Raptors were a bad team because they are getting mighty expensive, but I only use the Raptors because they love their wings. But again, I'll just reiterate it and say that I think for a specific number of teams trading for Rui, I think they'd actually be trading for Rui because they like him, and I think he'd be more valuable to them on a longer term deal where he's cost controlled. And Rui Hachimura for $20 million over the next 2 years past this one, I think is a cost controlled asset. Whereas if a team was trading for Rui on his expiring deal, then they have to get into negotiations with Rui and his camp. The next summer, they might have to overpay to retain him. All of a sudden, they're paying Rui Hachimura $25 million, and then it becomes less of a value asset for them. But if we can do the heavy lifting for them right now and lock Rui in to $20 million over the next 2 years, I think there are cases where he would actually be more attractive as an asset for a team to trade for. And again, I hate that I've already jumped to talking about Rui as a trade asset, but it is kind of what it is. I'll get into like the player side of things with regards to Rui and his future soon. But the other thing is, and why I think it might be important for the Lakers to try and at least come to terms with Rui if they aren't able to find a trade, of course. That's a big caveat. Hey, if they're able to trade Rui for Andrew Wiggins and all they have to give up is Rui and expirings, maybe Dalton Connect, sure, they should do that. Barring that, though, I think the Lakers' next step should be to try and re-sign Rui to an $18 to $23 million contract for the next 2 years, because heading into summer 2026, the Lakers actually do not have very much salary ballast to use in a trade, especially because Austin Reeves is an upcoming free agent. So we would, like, let's say draft night comes around 2026. Draft night, we have the ability to trade like 3 firsts because we can trade our 2026 first, and then we have access to the 2033 first by that point as well. We can do all of that, but our books are so murky with Austin Reeves being a free agent that we don't necessarily have the requisite salary ballast and amount to trade along with those first round picks, which is why it might actually behoove the Lakers to have Rui Hachimura already locked up it to a new $20 million deal. And so by draft night, if you have Rui sitting there as a $20 million trade asset that you can trade out, even if he's going to be making $20 million the next year into 27, 28, I think that's fine, because another team would be doing it for the first round picks and also just to take a flyer on a 28-year-old Rui Hachimura on a pretty decent deal, right? And so that's another reason why I think it's important for the Lakers to, if they're not able to find a trade for Rui, they should try their hardest to try and get into extension negotiations with Rui and actually nail something down, in my opinion. Because even if you don't want Rui as the player, I think the Lakers want to keep him as an asset. Now, of course, they could wait till the trade deadline. Expirings become more valuable near the trade deadline. Sure, all of that makes sense. But I also see the other angle where if we have Rui locked up to a new $40 million over 2-year deal, there's an argument and a case to be made that he might be more valuable on that contract than an expiring contract where a team is essentially just trading for the rights to re-sign Rui to a new 4-year, $25 million contract per year. And I don't think that's as attractive. Now, if Rui is asking for $25 million for the next 3 years, I think that's where I, as a fan and as the Lakers front office, would balk and kind of just let things play out how they may, see if they can deal him at the deadline. If not, then even if they aren't able to trade Rui at the deadline, or even if they're not able to sign someone using the cap space that Rui would provide once he's off their books in the summer, they can still re-sign Rui to a new short, maybe even short 1-year deal. Maybe they even give him one of those KCP specials. If you remember, before LeBron James came to town, the Lakers kept re-signing KCP to like a new 1-year, $19, $20 million deal just so that they could retain the asset. And then obviously he ended up becoming a valuable part to the Lakers championship run in 2019-20. But yeah, maybe Rui Hachimura can get that bloated 1-year Bruce Brown deal next summer if the Lakers aren't able to find a trade for him, or if the Lakers aren't able to sign someone using the cap space that Rui leaves behind. So yeah, those are, I think, their options. And again, to sum this up more concisely, those are the reasons why I think it behooves the Lakers to actually maybe extend Rui Hachimura on a new short-term deal. Now, okay, let's stop talking about Rui as an asset because I just talked so glowingly about him as a basketball player, as a person, as a guy who's made real strides in both of those areas. So let's talk about Rui as a future piece moving forward with the Lakers beyond him being a practical cap/asset move, because I do think there are benefits to seeing how Rui plays, and I do think there are benefits to seeing how Rui plays with and works off of Luka Doncic once LeBron James leaves. Because again, I rattled off all of those numbers of Rui's splits whenever LeBron James is out of the lineup and Rui has to fill in for him. And this dude is a consistent 16 to 19 point scorer on ridiculous, efficient offensive percentages. You don't want to just like give that away willy-nilly and give up on that, especially since you have another visionary playmaker like Luka Doncic. I also like that Luka Doncic and Luka came in together in the same draft, or maybe they were a year apart. But yeah, I I'm very interested in seeing how Rui continues to grow the more comfortable he becomes with Luka and vice versa. Um, and I bring up the LeBron James point again because so far, even though Rui has technically started at the 3 at times, even with LeBron James, functionally, he has been LeBron's replacement. And LeBron's role on offense has largely overshadowed and overlapped with Rui's to the point where even if they're on the court at the same time, Rui's just kind of on the sidelines doing the little things, and not really a focal point of the offense whatsoever. But we've seen in those games where LeBron is out and they utilize Rui Hachimura more in triple threat situations where he's able to face up with the ball and kind of unleash that sweet mid-range jump shot of his. Like Rui looks like a completely different player in those games, right? So what could Rui do with a tad bit more usage more consistently every night in the triple threat position? What can he do with the ball in his hands a little bit more when he's able to do the Kawhi Leonard mid-range magic stuff he likes to do? But even beyond that, even if nothing changes with Rui's on-ball usage, what does Rui look like as the athletic release valve next to Luka Doncic moving forward, period? Because especially as bench firepower, I would love to see Rui continue to grow as this physical finisher, this rim runner, this off-ball player who has improved every year as an off-ball player, who can space the floor and cut to the basket in the dunker spot and just provide the Lakers with continued positional versatility. And he doesn't even necessarily need to start because I do still think that we want to eventually get that real 3-and-D wing in the starting unit with Luka Doncic. But at the same time, I'm fine with keeping Rui off the bench moving forward into the future as a piece, as a reliable 6-man piece that we can always fall back on. And you know that Rui can start for you in a pinch and he can produce. Now, I've heard the arguments that, and it is true, that Rui as a bench player hasn't been as effective as he has been as a starter. Having said that, that's always been in the context of he's had Anthony Davis and LeBron James still in the lineup with him, even as a bench player. I just wonder what it looks like after LeBron James is no longer a Laker. And I'm not trying to push LeBron James out. I'm just thinking ahead, like once that happens, even if Rui is coming off the bench and the Lakers are actually relying on him to be that bench scorer, could he become a more consistent 6-man of the year, Lamar Odom-ish type? I think he could be. So yeah, those are pretty much my thoughts on Rui Hachimura. This is going to be like a short episode, guys. I think the likeliest scenario for the Lakers is still Rui probably gets traded for the upgrade we need at the trade deadline. But I wouldn't be rushing to do that. And I would first prioritize trying to get off of Gabe Vincent, Maxi Kleber, Dalton Connect, and then I would go Rui Hachimura. I would prioritize bumping Rui Hachimura up there first if we aren't able to get to an extension agreement with him. But hey, I just wouldn't be surprised, or I'm telling you guys right now, don't be surprised if the Lakers extend Rui Hachimura before training camp starts and we have Rui Hachimura on a new $40 million 2-year deal that just goes 2 years past this one. Because I already know the response fans are going to have when that happens. They're going to be crashing the F out. Rui's back. We're giving him $20 million. What the heck? I'm telling you right now, do not panic when that happens. It's actually, from a practical asset level, maybe a necessity for the Lakers. And from if you're a Rui Hachimura fan level, it also may work out for us if LeBron James is about to leave, and it doesn't leave us necessarily desperate if we aren't able to get that 3-and-D wing guy in free agency. We can just be like, oh, we have Rui still here, So keep those things in mind. Again, the most likeliest scenario still is Rui likely gets traded by the deadline for the upgrade we need. But overall, though, pushing all that to the side, I'm a big Rui Hachimura fan, even though I understand that he may need to go in order for the team to fully improve. I'm just not fully ruling out the fact that the Lakers may improve in all the areas that they need to improve in, and still keep Rui Hachimura and continue to build out that depth. Because the other thing that I like about Rui is that he's been with us for the last 3 years. And I just like the idea of maintaining some sort of continuity, some sort of consistency. And for the Lakers to actually reap what they've sowed into Rui Hachimura and actually see the dividends in that. Now, he's already done a lot for us. I mean, we've gone to the playoffs each year. We've already seen him grow. For all intents and purposes, Rui has been a win for the Lakers with regards to we gave up Kendrick Nunn in 3 seconds for him, right? The question now is, can Rui Hachimura be like a 6-man off the bench on a championship contending team with the Lakers? We've seen him be that on a Western Conference finalist team that's sort of middling, but can he take the next step? And I'm willing to ask that question as the Lakers head into their next phase with Luka Doncic and presumably no more LeBron James, at which point we would need Rui Hachimura. So, gambatte kudasai. With that said, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. Please remember to like this video, comment down below. Please hit subscribe on the channel. I am oh so close to getting 4K subscribers. So thank you guys very much for your efforts in consistently following this channel, popping into the lives, keeping the discussions lively. With that said, do all the things. Also on the podcast stuff, subscribe to the podcast feed, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. And yeah, this has been Jonathan Hernandez of the Lakers Legacy Podcast, and I will catch you guys next time. Peace.